incubator babies, orphan trains. Seems like they had to repopulate after the reset.
It was March 15th, 1906. The train pulling into the eastern Iowa town of Hopkinton that morning would have attracted an unusual amount of attention. Townspeople would have stopped what they were doing to watch. Shop owners would have stood in their doorways as the locomotive slowed near the depot. A notice placed in the Hopkinton newspaper days earlier had described the upcoming arrival of a company of orphan children. It said, "The object of the coming of these children is to find homes in your midst, especially among farmers, where they may enjoy a happy and wholesome family life, where kind care, good example, and moral training will fit them for a life of self-support and usefulness." Inside the train that day, 8 children would have peered out the windows, wondering about this place so far from New York. The group soon made its way off the train and down the block to the Hotel Hopkinton. After changing into the finer clothes they had been given, they were escorted to the nearby Masonic Lodge, where a group had gathered to see the children being offered. The boys and girls were asked to stand and sing a song, recite poetry, anything that might endear them to the crowd. By the time the gathering had ended, each of the 8 children had gone home with a different set of strangers. Between 1854 and 1929, this scene played out many times across the United States, particularly in the Midwest. These trips, which essentially amounted to the resettlement of 250,000 children, were later collectively described.
All right, let me paint you guys a picture here. The orphan train movement in the 1800s was spearheaded by Charles Loring Brace and the Children's Aid Society, transporting orphaned and disadvantaged children from eastern cities to rural areas, primarily in the Midwest, to find homes and work on farms. Founded the Children's Aid Society in New York City in 1853 to address the plight of impoverished and orphaned children in urban areas. Okay, so this Loring Brace guy, such a nice guy, creates this society for these orphaned and disadvantaged children. Keep this in mind. Specifically from eastern cities, only eastern cities, to rural areas, primarily the Midwest. This is the Foundling Hospital in New York City. You're going to realize when it comes to this orphan train thing, the hub or the cloning facility is probably in New York City. Don't you guys find it very, very odd? Think about it for a second. You have a problem with orphans, right? These orphans are popping up and they're impoverished, right? Why didn't anybody in this entire country, I'm talking to you too at Princeton and Yale, why didn't anybody ask, why is it no other orphanage or anything exists anywhere else in the United States? Why is it that somehow, some way, only New York is producing orphans to be transported around you mean out of all the rest of those states, nobody else has any impoverished orphans with no parents that are in danger? Only in New York City? Why didn't we ask that question? That is hands down the most important question. if you have an orphan problem with children, aren't you going to have that problem all over the country? Different states? Randomly? But no, you got one centralized location where all the orphans are coming from. Why? 3 charitable institutions. Nah, they just made up institutions so that they can create an entity to funnel the money through. The institutions were supported by wealthy donors and operated by professional staff. The 3 institutions developed a program to place homeless, orphaned, and abandoned city children who numbered an estimated 30,000 in New York City alone in foster homes throughout the country. Again, advertising that these kids are endangered and they're in New York and they need help. The children were transported to their new homes on trains that were labeled orphan trains. 1854 to 1900s, estimated 250,000 children. Again, these children all came from New York. Why? Some children were placed by families who could not care for them at the time, but expected to reunite with their children when circumstances changed. They are lying to y'all. They were cloning these children in New York and shipping them out. Look at this. Families who could not care for them at the time. I'm from New York. We don't give a fuck. We got one potato. We're gonna share and we're gonna cut up that potato. But we're not shipping our kid across the country on a train. Let's be real. Why were there so many orphans on the trains? Children with both parents living ended up on the trains or in orphanages because their families did not have the money or desire to raise them, or because they had been abused or abandoned or had run away. Do you see how they're literally trying to give you an excuse for the orphan children? Like, they're trying to tell you, they're trying to explain it into your head. This is all bullshit. A lot of us are parents, or any of you parents out there like, oh, this is just so hard. I'm going to have to put my kid on a train across the country. No, you're not. Especially when you know that, if everybody knows about the orphan trains, everybody knows what's happening with the kids on the orphan trains, just like we all know what happens with kids in foster homes. Is the orphan train somewhere you'd want to send your kid? No. Meaning what? These kids do not have parents. They don't have parents. 250,000 kids? You need 2 parents? That's 500,000 people. Organizations did not care what happened to the children after they were placed and did not check in on them to make sure they were cared for. Charles Loring Brace, the man who organized this all. Without homes, call and see them. Homes wanted for children, homeless children. All these homeless children, they came out of nowhere, specifically in the city of New York only. Oh, and as you watch these pictures, you're going to realize something. There are no black children. And they were white slaves. Look, indentured. That's a slave. Own child every respect until shall arrive at the age of 21 years. You were supposed to take care of the child, and that child was indentured to you till it was 21 years old. Yes. They're picking cotton. Yes, he's picking cotton. And mind you, this is happening between the 1850s and 1920, 1930. I love where all the slavery is right about now. These kids look like they're out in the field. That looks like tobacco. Again, slaves. All coming from New York. But when the mind's blind, the eyes can't see. Stay tuned for part 2, 3, and 4.